I'm about to show you a clip of Peter Thiel, and he's talking about stagnation, broken institutions, and why parts of Silicon Valley are now backing Trump. And look, whether or not you agree with the politics, here's why this matters for Palantir. Palantir was built because the system couldn't move fast enough. It was born out of 9/11, designed to solve problems government tech couldn't, and in this interview, Thiel is basically saying that same dynamic is back. We're going to look at what Peter says about decline, moonshots, and why Palantir's core thesis, that institutions are too slow, is now mainstream thinking.
From your perspective of, so let's say there's two layers, right? There's sort of a basic sense of, this society needs disruption, it needs risk. Trump is disruption, Trump is risk. And the second level is Trump is actually willing to say things that are true about American decline, right? So do you feel like you, as an investor, as a venture capitalist, got anything out of the first Trump term? Like what did Trump do in his first term that you felt was anti-decadent or anti-stagnation? If anything, maybe the answer is nothing.
Well, I think it took longer and it was slower than I would have liked, but we have gotten to the place where a lot of people think something's gone wrong. And that was not the conversation I was having in 2012, 2013, 2014. I had a debate with Eric Schmidt in 2012 and Mark Andreessen in 2013 and Bezos in 2014. I was on there's a stagnation problem, and all three of them were versions of, everything's going great. And I think at least those three people have, to varying degrees, updated and adjusted.
That sentence says a lot more than it sounds like. Thiel's talking about Schmidt, Andreessen, Bezos, people who shaped modern tech. And he's saying they've had to update. They've had to shift from everything is fine to, okay, maybe we've hit a wall. That's exactly the worldview Palantir started with. That you can't rely on the system to fix itself. That waiting around doesn't work. So this moment's less about politics and more about recognition. And even the optimists are now seeing the stagnation Palantir was built to break. Quick plug. In the last 12 months, I've helped 3 businesses grow to over $100,000 months using YouTube without spending $1 on ads. If you run a business and want more qualified leads, stronger trust with your audience, and compounding revenue from content that works 24/7, I can help you do the same. Book a call using the link below to see how YouTube can scale your business.
Silicon Valley's adjusted.
And Silicon Valley, though, has more than adjusted. A big part of Silicon Valley
on the stagnation
question. Right, on the stagnation. But then
question.
a big part of Silicon Valley ended up going in for Trump in 2024, including, obviously, most famously, Elon Musk.
Yeah, and this is deeply linked to the stagnation issue in my telling. I mean, and these things are always super complicated, but my telling is, I don't, and again, I'm so hesitant to speak for all these people, but, someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook Meta, and, in some ways, I don't think he's very ideological. He didn't think this stuff necessarily through that much. It was the default was to be liberal, and it was always if the liberalism isn't working, what do you do? And for year after year after year, it was you do more. If something doesn't work, you just need to do more of it, and you up the dose, and you up the dose, and you spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and you go completely woke, and everybody hates you, and at some point, it's like, okay, maybe this isn't working.
So they pivot,
yeah,
right?
So it's not a pro-Trump thing.
It's not a pro-Trump thing, but it is, just both in public and private conversations, it is a kind of sense that Trumpism and populism in 2024, maybe not in 2016, when, Peter was out there as the lone supporter, but now in 2024, they can be a vehicle for technological innovation.
Populism as a vehicle for innovation really sticks out here. Thiel isn't trying to make a political case, he's saying it because nothing else has worked. And that's where Palantir comes in. Palantir is a company that's never relied on slow consensus or government agencies doing the right thing. They've always pushed change from the outside. So when Thiel talks about the shift of tech people moving towards disruption, not because it's perfect, but but because it moves, that's the same reason Palantir keeps getting traction. It works in places where traditional models stall.
Economic dynamism and so on.
You're framing it really, really optimistically here. So
the people, but I think I know you're pessimistic.
When you frame it this optimistically, you're just saying these people are going to be disappointed and they're just set up for failure, and things like this.
I mean, people expressed a lot of optimism. That's all I'm saying. Elon Musk expressed a lot of. I mean, he expressed some apocalyptic anxieties about how budget deficits were going to kill us all. But he came into government, and people around him came into government basically saying, we have a partnership with the Trump administration, and we're pursuing technological greatness. I think they were optimistic.
Yes.
And so you're coming from a place of greater pessimism or realism. So what I'm asking for is your assessment of where we are. Not their assessment, but like, does populism in Trump 2.0 look like a vehicle for technological dynamism to you?
It's still by far the best option we have. I don't know, is Harvard going to cure dementia by just puttering along, doing the same thing that hasn't worked for 50 years? So that's
just a case for it can't get worse. Let's do disruption, right? But the critique of populism right now would be Silicon Valley made an alliance with the populists, but in the end, the populists don't care about science. They don't want to spend money on science. They want to kill funding to Harvard just because they don't like Harvard, right? And in the end, you're not going to get the kind of investments in the future that Silicon Valley wanted. Is that wrong?
This is where the tension shows up and the idea that populists don't actually care about science, they just want to cut funding. Thiel doesn't push back directly. Instead, he asks, how well is the current system working, really? He's not defending cuts, he's challenging the value. And you can see why that matters for Palantir, because they didn't wait for institutions to modernize, they just built the tools that were missing. In a world where the Einstein letter gets lost in the mailroom, as Thiel says, companies like Palantir aren't optional, they're necessary.
Yeah, but we have to go back to this question of, how well is the science working in the background? This is where, the New Dealers, whatever was wrong with them, they pushed science hard, and you funded it, you gave money to people, and you scaled it, and whereas today, if there was an equivalent of Einstein and he wrote a letter to the White House, it would get lost in the mailroom, and the Manhattan Project is unthinkable. If we call something a moonshot, this is the way Biden talked about, let's say, cancer research. A moonshot in the 60s still meant that you went to the moon. A moonshot now means something completely fictional that's never going to happen. Oh, you need a moonshot for that. It's not like we need an Apollo program. It means it's never, ever going to happen.
Let's focus on that last line because he's right. We use terms like moonshot like they still mean something. But today, it's often just signal that we're pretending to be ambitious without any real plan to follow through. Again, that's where Palantir differs. Whether it's defense, health, or supply chains, they're still building like they expect things to work. So when Thiel says disruption might be the only real path left, it's a challenge to everyone that's still pretending the old systems will magically start delivering. Palantir isn't pretending, they're already moving.